we had Steve Witkoff disappearing from the scene. He came back. And again, he tried to talk with Iranians, tried to contact Iranians. He's in Moscow and talking. He left, but he had a meeting with Vladimir Putin. So far, we don't know what was the outcome of that. But when it comes to Donald Trump and his strategy and the way that he's talking about the war in Ukraine, it doesn't seem that he knows that much about what's going on. And here is what he said just yesterday.
President Zelensky just signed a law allowing for citizens age 60 and above to serve in the military. We've seen dozens of videos of young men being hauled into vans and dragged to the front lines against their will. And we've even seen videos of a young man with Down syndromes serving on the front line. You, when you campaigned, you said you wanted to see the people stop dying. A lot of people admired that statement. Now the people dying are elderly, mentally handicapped, and conscripts. So even if a ceasefire doesn't work out, why should Americans continue to fund a foreign military that's scraping the bottom of the barrel of its population like this?
Well, you have to understand very importantly, this is Biden's war. This is not my war. I'm here to get us out of it. It's a mess, and I'm here to get us out. I haven't heard that when you say about 60-year-old men and, et cetera. But this is Biden's war, and we're working very hard to get us out.
It's more than 8 months that we're talking about the people that Zelensky is trying to send to the battlefield, young people and elderly people and more than 60 years old. And Donald Trump says he doesn't know and he has no clue about it. How can we assume that he knows what's going on with the case of Ukraine?
I think we can assume that he knows nothing about what's going on in the case of Ukraine. Just the other day, he gave voice to just outlandish assessments that the Russians suffered 20,000 dead in a month. This last month, the Ukraine's only suffered 8,000 dead since January. I mean, if those are figures that he's quoting as the president of the United States, then, either he is completely failing to comprehend what people are telling him, or people are just spoon feeding him garbage. And those numbers are Ukrainian numbers. This is the fantasy world that Ukrainian extremists who populate social media live in. And this means that the president is dealing with people who scrape social media accounts to pull together, fantasy numbers and then brief the president of the United States. This is disturbing. You've spoken to Ray McGovern on several occasions. He used to be the man who briefed it was the CIA briefer for the presidential daily brief. I was never a briefer. I know that I have been the subject of several presidential daily briefings, and I know what goes into it. The level of scrutiny that information gets before it's included in something that's briefed before the president of the United States, considered to be the most powerful person in the world, who should only have access to the most accurate, verified, fact-based information, carefully assessed information in the world, was amazing. I mean, the CIA bent over backwards to make sure that if it got into the PDB, it was good, because you don't get second chances at that level. This is the president of the United States. This president's being fed garbage. I mean, there's no, PDB. That even when they talk about the PDB, they've turned it into something like a Fox News format. I mean, so it's not, originally it's about entertaining the president. This is crap. I know Tulsi Gabbard, she's responsible for the PDB. She has a huge responsibility and overwhelming tasks. This president doesn't want to be briefed. How can you be briefed if you believe you know everything? I mean, this is a man who, I'm the smartest in the world about this. I know more about this than anybody. He knows nothing about anything, and he just proved it. I mean, this is the president of the United States committing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of American taxpayer money to continue to sustain a conflict that's already been lost, pretending that he cares about human lives, but all he's doing is guaranteeing that tens of thousands of Ukrainians are going to die in a war that could be stopped right now if the president made it stop. I hope that's the message that Steve Witkoff got from Vladimir Putin, is that this war can be stopped right now. If you really care about human life, we can stop this war. Vladimir Putin made a presentation. He said, look, Ukraine just withdraw from our territory, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk, and you'll never be part of NATO. If you say that, we'll do a ceasefire right now. Right now, we'll have a ceasefire. And then we'll talk. It's not going to be over at that point in time. It's just a ceasefire. But then they begin conflict termination discussions without anybody dying. That's what the president of the United States claims he wants. Hopefully, Putin turned to Witkoff and said, let me make it as clear as possible. We're advancing, and we will continue to advance until we've taken back all our territory. That's not Ukrainian territory. Sorry, it never will be again. It's Mother Russia. And this is the trajectory we're on. This will happen. It's inevitable. You can't stop it. Now, if you can make the Ukrainians understand that this is going to happen, that you can't stop it, and the only thing that's going to happen is that Ukraine's going to lose another couple 100,000 dead, maybe the best thing to do is just get them the hell out of there, and tell them that they'll never be part of NATO, and then we begin talking at that point in time. And at that point in time, nobody's dying. The president's achieved what he claims to achieve. I hope that's what Putin told Witkoff, and I hope Witkoff comes back and tells Trump exactly that. And I hope that Trump never listens to Steve Kellogg again, because I think that's where a lot of these fanciful numbers are coming from. And I hope that Pete Hegseth takes a lead from Trump and tells people like Christopher Donahue to shut up about Kaliningrad, and maybe start telling Whitaker, the ambassador to NATO, to tone it down. If you ever call Putin, I forget what he called you, just insulting words. If you ever do that again while I'm trying to have a negotiation to bring it into a conflict, I'll fire you, arrest you, and put you in jail for the rest of your life. I mean, what kind of idiot does it take? This man's a former prosecutor. He's supposed to have a couple brain cells up there. What kind of idiot goes out there and badmouths President Putin at the very moment when the United States needs to encourage dialogue with President Putin? The president has surrounded himself with the worst advisors possible. Marco Rubio is horrible. Pete Hegseth is just ignorant as the day is long. There is no national security advisor anymore. Marco Rubio is dual hatting on this. Keith Kellogg is just in, Banderas la la land. The only trusted person that he has out there is Steve Witkoff. And Witkoff's job isn't to actually negotiate. His job is to be a messenger, to take President Trump's message, deliver it, and receive the message from Putin. I trust Witkoff in this capacity, and we'll see. But, we also have to remember that, Witkoff was the guy that was supposedly negotiating with the Iranians at the last minute before Israel carried out their surprise attack. So that's another problem the Russians have is, and I would have said that again, this is why I'll never be the president of anything, but I would have told Witkoff, you're here. But how do I know that, Trump just moved 2 Ohio-class submarines closer to Russian shores? How do I know you're not here just to, soften us up for the surprise attack? We can't trust you anymore. We don't trust you. We don't believe a word you say anymore. Are you sincere? I don't know. Maybe you're sincere, but is your president sincere? These are things that have to be brought back to President Trump, and he has to be told, you have to change the way you do business, because right now the way you do business is disgraceful. It discredits the United States, and it puts us in a position where when we need diplomacy the most, we can't do it, because who's going to trust us? Nobody should ever trust us again. Not him, not this president.
It's not just about submarines. He deployed nukes to Europe, to the United Kingdom, if
I'm not worried about that. I mean, it is what it is, but we already have more than 100 of those bombs there. So what's 20 more? Who cares? It's just the stupidity of it. It's just dumb. But having a couple more B-61-12s stationed in England as opposed to stationed in the Netherlands, stationed in Italy, stationed in Belgium, stationed in Turkey, they're there already. Yeah, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to lose sleep over that. What I lose sleep over is the movement of the Ohio-class submarines. That's problematic. What I lose sleep over is the continued desire on the part of the United States to deploy Dark Eagle to Europe. That's a hypersonic missile. I'm not happy about that. I lose sleep over the fact that the Russians have walked away from the INF self-imposed moratorium on deploying INF systems, and now the Oreshnik is in serial production and being deployed. You know, I don't think you're old enough to remember the SS-20 crisis of the 1970s when the Soviets brought the SS-20 out. It changed everything. NATO went from saying, maybe we can do it, to saying, we're dead. The moment this happens, we all die, because of this system that just overwhelms everything. And it led to a crisis where we deployed Pershing IIs and ground-launched cruise missiles to Europe and put us on the cusp of of the situation spinning out of control, killing everybody, which is why we signed the INF treaty. Well, we're in a similar situation today, because now the Oreshnik is there, and that genie's not going back in the bottle. And now we're going to deploy Dark Eagle, and we're right back to where we were in 1985, 1986. Then we had Pershing IIs ready to strike Moscow in 7 to 12 minutes of launch. The Soviets had the SS-20s that were going to blanket all of Europe, kill everything. Today, in a year, we're going to have the Dark Eagle that, again, can hit Moscow within minutes of launch, and the Russians have Oreshnik, which can take out everything in Europe. Wow. You think we would have learned, but we didn't. So those are the things that get me. The fact that Donald Trump, like the idiot he is, went ahead and threw a couple more B-6112s into England. It's not a game changer. It doesn't alter the balance of power. Oreshnik alters the balance of power in a big way. And now we don't have a treaty vehicle to limit it. And, the New START treaty expires on February 4th of next year. And when that's gone, we don't have a treaty vehicle to limit it. We'll jump from 1,550 deployed warheads to over 4,000 to 5,000 almost overnight. The United States already has the plan. We've bragged about it. This shows how we negotiate in bad faith with the New START. We put all these warheads into storage by basically dropping the Minuteman III from 3 warheads to 1 warhead. But just months ago, they did a Minuteman test where they put 3 warheads back on a Minuteman and test launched it to prove that they can do it. So overnight, the Minuteman will go from 1 to 3 warheads. 450 of them. There's 900 more warheads out there. The Trident will go from whatever their classified low number is to whatever their classified high number is overnight. Boom. And now we're talking a couple thousand more. We'll go to 4,000 or 5,000 warheads, and then we'll just start building new systems and without any constraints. The next thing you know, we'll be up to 20 to 30,000 warheads deployed, and the Russians will do the same. We're right back to the height of the Cold War. We're reversing everything. So these are the things that bother me. A couple more B-61s. I mean, it shouldn't have happened. I agree with you. It shouldn't have happened. It was stupid, but that's not what I lose sleep over at night about.
But after all, it's a sign to Russians. And today, as Witkoff was talking with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump signed secondary tariffs on India because of Russian oil. These are signs for Russia and the Russian government. If you're honest, if you want something substantial, if you want, as Witkoff was talking about, strategic partnership or cooperation, whatever they're looking for, these are not the signs that make you hopeful about that.
No, but this is Donald Trump we're talking about. All right. He can put them on, he can take them off. I mean, there's no, this isn't Congress passing legislation. Congress already passed legislation that gave the president the ability to do whatever the hell he wants to do. And so the president now can put these on, he can take them off anytime he wants for whatever reason he wants. I think what, in the president's warped little, art of the deal mind, I'm putting them on India to put pressure on Russia, to let the Russians know we're serious. India's already said, pound sand, we're not doing this. China's already said the same thing. Brazil, I think, has said the same thing. I think the president's waking up to the fact that nobody's going to respond to this. Nobody cares. But in his mind, he has to put pressure on, or else, Witkoff won't have any leverage when he meets with Putin. So this is what the president's doing. But this is fake. It's all fake. I feel that, if there's going to be a deal, you're going to see the president, once there's a path to a ceasefire, then the president will, do what needs to be done with, the sanctions he's put on the nations that purchase Russian oil, because you can't have a deal unless you're willing to lift all sanctions, the Russian prerequisites. Got to lift all sanctions, and those include secondary sanctions.
Isn't that amazing that we are living in the Western Hemisphere and we are talking every day? We read the mainstream media and all these discussions on the conflict in Ukraine, but we don't know what's going on in the mind of the Trump administration. You said that somehow we know what Russia wants with a settlement in Ukraine. There's so
Not somehow we know because Putin tells us, because he's honest with us.
Yeah.
And as former senior level officials at I think the World Bank said, when we sit down with Vladimir Putin for meetings, he knows everything. He's very well prepared. You can't get him on anything. He knows it all. And he doesn't need notes. He's done his research. This is who we're dealing with here. I mean, literally, I know all the Americans in the audience are going to get really mad at me for saying this. He's the best leader in the world today. There's no leader that comes close to Vladimir Putin. I wish we had an American president that, had the discipline and the, intellectual capacity and the integrity of a Vladimir Putin, and think about the general well-being of the people you're responsible for. I honestly believe when Vladimir Putin wakes up in the morning, his one driving force is, what can I do to make the life of the Russian people better? I believe it because you take a look at how he behaves and what he does. He acts on it. I don't think Donald Trump wakes up giving one rat's ass about the American people. He cares about Donald Trump. His administration right now is just bending over backwards to try and get him the Nobel Peace Prize. He's stopped 5 wars. You know that, right? He's stopped all 5 of them, all 5 of the wars. And the 6th one, the big one, is Russia. And he's going to stop that too. And God, if the Russians ever say, all right, we'll do the ceasefire if the Ukrainians do this, he's going to say, I've stopped all the wars in the world. I am the ultimate peacemaker. You must give me the Nobel Peace Prize. Forget the fact that I bombed Iran in violation of international law and that I worked with the Israelis to carry out a surprise attack against Iran. Forget that little fact. I mean, that's just, come on. 2 submarines moving to Russia? Not a big deal. He hasn't stopped any wars, not a single war. Every war he thinks he stopped is still festering. And if they stopped, it wasn't because of him. India and Pakistan didn't stop fighting because of Donald Trump. Cambodia and Thailand still are hooking and jabbing. The Cambodians might want to kiss his ass a little bit more and nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, but the Thais aren't, because the Thais know the truth. There's still problems there. He talked about he sent a 3-man delegation to the Congo to try and cook up a deal between Congo and Rwanda, and they had to flee for their lives. I mean, yeah, you stopped that war, didn't you, Donnie baby? He hasn't stopped a single war. And all he does is fuel wars. He sells weapons. The he's not just a hypocrite. He's not just a liar. He's ignorant, purely ignorant. And it's all narcissist based. This is all about Donald Trump. And my God, you have a president of the United States that is going to take all this power and just focus it on making Donald Trump seem like a great guy. $60 million worth of food to Gaza, but nobody's thanked me. Nobody's thanked me at all. Why aren't you thanking me? Why aren't you making sure the food gets to the people who need it? Well, somebody should thank me. This is where we're at right now. When was the last time Vladimir Putin had to go on national TV and beg people to thank him for something? Never.